Yo, welcome to Crate 808, and today we have a very special guest on board. It's the man with the ill culinary behaviour who bought music for all you mature B-boys. We've got DJ Format in the house. Legend, how are you doing, man?
I'm really good, thanks, Cam. I just want to say thank you for that nicer intro than I probably deserved, but thank you.
Mate, no, absolutely. Your music has got me through a lot of that period where I thought hip-hop might be dead, and I was one of them guys, and man, it wasn't dead, but also your music was just incredible. So it soundtracked a lot of my life, so it's very, very much my pleasure to have you on, man.
Man, that means a lot. Thank you. It really does. You know, after doing it all this time, the fact that people even remember stuff that I did, you know, like a year or two ago, let alone 20 years plus, you know, that's very touching. So thank you.
Nah, man, nah, all you. And even more my privilege to have you on, man, because we could have done a straight interview, but I thought, you know, I'll email you. See, it's a 90s hip hop podcast. There's loads of albums that we all fell in love with back in that golden era. So I asked you if you'd like to bring an album on, and you picked Aceyalone's 1998, A Book of Human Language.
Yeah.
I'm ready for this chat.
I think the reason that I chose that, you know, I would, man, it's always hard to say, you know, what's your absolute favorite album of all time, you know, whether you're talking just specifically the genre of hip hop or whatever, but
Yo, quick reminder, if you're enjoying the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you'll be kept up to date with all that we're doing. And also, man, get involved in the YouTube comments. Man, we love hearing from you fellow hip-hop heads. We love nerding out, so bring those takes and just bring that flavour, man, and we might even shout you out on the show. So yes, appreciate all the support. Now, back to the episode.
It's up there with my favourites, but the reason that I chose it above, let's say, Ultramagnetic MC's Critical Beatdown, I have always really listed that as my number one. I've always had Lord Finesse's first two albums up there in my. I've got about 25 records that are in my top five, you know. And Aceyalone, this album probably wasn't long term in my top five, in my fantasy top five, where there's actually even 25 of them. But I think that it really, over the course of time, I've grown to appreciate it even more than some of those other albums that I mentioned. And apart from anything else, they've all been spoken about a million times. And I feel that A Book of Human Language is an absolute masterpiece that, you know, is just nice to sort of talk about something other than, you know, the ones we all know, you know, Nas, Illmatic, you know, various Tribe Called Quest albums. Of course, we all know and love them, but let's try a different angle. Let's go with something that somebody might have missed, because another thing, I'm probably saying all this in the wrong order, but basically I got introduced to this album at least 2, if not 3 years after it came out. I initially somehow missed it. It was only a friend that was equally as passionate about it said to me, Matt, I think you're gonna really love this. You know, you've really missed out on a gem here. So shout out to my man Chris Aylen, originally one of the founder members of the DWG crew. So big shout out to Chris for introducing me to Book of Human Language.
Oh man,
even though I was already a Freestyle Fellowship and Aceyalone fan, obviously not big enough to have even caught his album when it came out. But I was just so not checking hip hop at that time in '98. I was like, kind of what you said before we started the interview, you know, just that feeling of like, oh man, hip hop's a bit boring and a bit done for, you know, it's just not really speaking to us, you know, at that time.
Yeah, amazing context. I am going to dive in with you, man, but I can't have you on the pod after wanting you on all this time and not ask you what I ask everyone, which is Format. What is the least hip hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours?
You've asked me the best possible 24-hour period.
Okay.
I yesterday had what's it called? Oh God, my mind's gone blank now. What an idiot! I had a shamanic health shamanic healing treatment.
Right.
For God's sake, what is the matter with my brain?
Is it including ayahuasca and stuff like that? Are you on that?
It's like that, but it's not that. This is the one that just makes you purge. This was
right.
Yeah, this is one that you've got like you've got the toad. I don't know. Does ayahuasca come from toad, or is that a different one? I know that there's one where you extract the poison from a toad.
Yeah.
But that takes you on a psychedelic trip that sort of, really grounds you and brings you closer to, Mother Nature and all that kind of thing, which is something that I was looking into anyway. But before that, I wanted to do this kind of purge thing, and this is like. This is a South American tradition, and the amazing woman that I, went to see yesterday. She studied in Peru under these shamanic, masters that have dedicated their whole lives to it. Not just anyone can go and do this, but anyway. I can't wait. I still can't even think what the damn thing's called. What's the matter with my brain?
Right. It reminds me, there's that Vipassana and stuff like that in the Asian. We have that kind of thing, which isn't as much as a purge, but we don't lick enough toads. I feel. I think. But then again, that's actually really. I don't know. Could I see Snoop Dogg licking a hallucinogenic toad? Probably.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah. Snoop's a very cool individual. He's going to do anything that's a little bit out there. He's going to be down with it,
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally feel about him anyway. I think he's going to be down with it. But basically, I had like these little. I won't show you. This is just going to be an audio thing, right? The viewers won't see it.
The viewers can see this. We'll have a YouTube. Oh, right. What is that?
So it's like that's where they burn your flesh. They burn these dots, and then that's where when the flesh is exposed, they place the frog's excretion, let's call it, on those sort of wounds, and it gets into your system. It then makes you kind of like maybe it can make some people react in different ways, but it generally makes you sort of sweat, increased heart rate, and feel really bad and want to vomit. And in my case, the reason I did it, apart from having a number of physical things that it can supposedly help, and also mentally, it was mostly for ongoing stomach problems. That anyone who knows me knows about my years of never-ending bloody stomach problems. So that was the reason I did it, because I just felt that by something that was really going to purge me and hopefully reset some things inside my body. So I'm at the point where I'm almost trying everything and anything, because I've not been right for such a long time, and I've not drunk alcohol or eaten sugar or barely any processed food for 3 years. That's how extreme I've been.
Wow.
To not eat sugar in 3 years is so difficult because it's in everything. But anyway, you've asked me, you've opened up this whole hornet's nest out.
I kind of want to just go down that road now, though, and make this one of those podcasts. So Aceyalone, a great album, but damn, I like DJ Former. What is this about your health? But man, I hope you're well, and I hope it's working for you.
Sorry, my brain is working. It's okay. So it's called Kambo with a K, Kambo. Kambo.
Right.
Like I say, it's South American shamanic medicine. And it's best that people, investigate for themselves if they're interested. Or this might be the point where they switch off and go, I don't want to hear anything this weirdo's got to say about music anymore.
Yo, us here at the Crate 808 podcast have kicked off our Patreon. So if you don't know what Patreon is, it's a platform where you can go and for a small donation, you can help support us make more hip-hop content for you. Go on to patreon.com/Crate808 and you can check out all the little payment options you've got there. You can check out the 2 new episodes you'll be getting every month, live chats with us guys, just to nerd out with you guys. We're going to go into some wide-ranging episodes, delving into the work of the Wu-Tang Clan, MF Doom and Jay Dilla, so get it locked if you want that new granular look at hip-hop. So go to our payment tiers on Patreon, big up yourselves. If you choose to support us, thank you so much. I will give you a personalised shout out on the show, and we shall catch you in one of these live rooms, and let's get this community going. So spread the word, much love for your time, and peace out. Boom.
But there you go. That is surely the most non-hip hop thing I've done.
It's yeah, that's the most out the box. Like I'm very much here for it though. That's great. Toad excretion. I'd never thought. But then again, Aceyalone probably has rapped about toad excretion at some point because his rhyming is that mad. So if we are pivoting back then to the album, you were saying this, you got to a bit late. So expand that on a little bit for me, like your context of 1998. Where were you at this point? And then what was your experience of hip hop after you heard the album? Like, how did it change your mindset, if it did at all?
Well, around 98, in fact, for me personally, I started to get a little bit less interested in hip hop and much more interested in, jazz and other music that I was searching out to sample. Jazz, I would say, was just the most sort of easily accessible, decent quality music that I could find where I lived at the time in Southampton, where I grew up. I mean, you could get jazz even if it was from a friend's, parents or grandparents, whereas it wasn't necessarily so easy to find parents that had great soul and funk records. Yes, my dad had a few soul records and, bits and bobs like that. And I used to hassle the cleaning ladies at work when I used to work in this leisure centre, and they would mostly bring rubbish in. But one of them brought in her husband's records that were mostly all soul and funk. And she brought in a Meters album for me that just, hearing the Meters for the first time, it almost ruined hip hop for me, because I was just like, everything on this album has just been absolutely rinsed. I mean, it made me look at the hip hop songs a little bit differently. But anyway, so get back on track. So since probably 95 going into 96, I feel that there was a little change in hip hop production styles. Maybe it was partly to do with sample clearance issues. People wanted to be a little bit clever and disguising what they were using, and they were sort of more using like just kick, snares and hi-hats rather than drum breaks. For me, that was a massive loss. And also there was a lot of stabs, just people chopping stabs. So for example, Craig Mack, Flavor in Your Ear, nothing wrong with it. I'm sure most people love it, but for me, that was kind of a bit of that's just a catalyst for me in terms of how things just got so simplified and just so like nothingy and just so it's a club record. It's cool, but there's not really any substance to it for me personally. So I was getting much more into jazz and stuff like that. So by 98, well, like I say, I initially missed Aceyalone anyway, but I just got more and more into just digging for things to sample, and rather than just listening to the few seconds of magic, actually starting to really get into some of this music. And that made me a little bit less uncomfortable with the fact that I was almost losing touch with hip hop and a bit feeling a bit lost. Like, this stuff's just not really speaking to me. And all the time there were guys like, obviously Jurassic 5 came out in 97. They'd done the Unified Revolution 12-inch before that as well. But, they came out and played at Fresh 97 and blew our minds with the live performance as well as the EP. There was some good independent hip hop coming out, but even that whole indie thing, it wasn't massively speaking to me. The stuff I was actually inspired enough to buy, the records like that were few and far between. So I think it was when I was going to do an interview with, like I say, this guy Chris Aylan, who was one of the founder members of DWG. I think before that he used to write for someone else. I forget the name now, but he was writing for someone else. And he came to my house to interview me in Brighton when I lived here the first time before I moved off and went travelling around all over. Right. And we just really hit it off. And we were mostly sharing our taste in, what became known as random rap, the kind of the stuff from like typically 87, 88, 89, that kind of one-off releases on independent labels that the majority of us might have missed at the time, and then or we might have heard them at the time and not really paid them much mind, because let's be honest, in 88, we had Big Daddy Kane, we had Ultramagnetic MCs, we had Stetsasonic. Yeah. If someone just came out with a random record, there was every chance it could get looked over, right? So it could get passed over. So me and Chris were talking a lot about the random stuff, and for some reason, the more we got to know each other's tastes, that's when he said to me, you need to, maybe we'd spoken about Freestyle Fellowship, because I never had their first album, but I had the second one, the Inner City Griot, and I had the original US pressing, which was promo only, which back then, probably wasn't in a lot of people's record collections, let's say. So maybe that's what started the conversation with Chris, I don't know, or maybe the fact that I had All Balls Don't Bounce by Aceyalone. Yeah. But he said, oh my God, you've missed out, you've missed a trick here, you've got to get this Book of Human Language. So sure enough, I hunted it down, and I'm more of a, because I'm obviously, a producer and a music lover, I do love rappers, and I do love the art of rap and MCing, but I'm first and foremost a music guy, I'm a music lover. So the music is always going to be more important to me. So I think hearing Book of Human Language, it was the ultimate marriage of an MC, just absolutely at his peak, and a producer also absolutely at his peak. Mumbles was the producer, by the way, an LA guy, and he was using a lot of jazz samples, a lot of stuff that at that time I didn't know. Over the years you stumble upon things, and it's such a beautiful feeling where you're like, oh wow, that was what he is. So just that perfect marriage of the music that was almost meant to be for those lyrics. But I believe that it was originally done as an instrumental work by Mumble, and Aceyalone heard it and put lyrics to it. I believe that's the case. Is that what you believe to be the case?
Big up Dad Bod Rap Pod. They had Mumbles on to talk about this album and his career. So I dove into that interview, and it's a great interview. And there's so many things. When you look at this album, the themes on this album lyrically are so grandiose, but also the beats themselves. Apparently he was at high school when he made these. Yeah, he was at high school. They actually got him into it's a really weird road he got to Aceyalone, but it went via Master P apparently at one point up to the Beasties. He could have had some work with the Beasties, and then
as in Master P, the sort of, for want of a better word, thug rapper. Yeah.
From this interview I heard, that was really, he'd heard, I don't know if he'd heard these beats, but he'd heard he's a beat maker, asked him to come in, roundabout way, got to someone who very close to the Beasties. So this could have been, the weird thing is what the coulda, woulda, shouldas could have been, because could have some of these beats been Beastie beats, but then Aceyalone heard it and went to a cabin and may have even licked some toads and actually and thought up this and apparently the weird thing is these beats, like you've said, they're an instrumental and he's just worked to them. It's fascinating. That must be fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I've got little tidbits of information that I garnished from Cut Chemist over the years, because I toured with him. When me and Abdominal supported Jurassic 5 in 2003, but I usually try and avoid talking about this, and now here's me just starting up. It's very relevant. But I first drove the J5 tour bus in 98 and a little bit in 99. And I don't think it was those early meetings that I must have spoken to Cut Chemist about, because like I say, by my own admission, I don't think I was aware of the album until 2000 or 2001. But it must have been when we toured together in 2003. I remember him telling me stuff. My memory's not as good as it used to be. I'm nearly 50 now. It's like, you know what it's like.
I feel you.
But, honestly, I can't remember. I would say I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I do remember. I was out licking frogs. Cut Chemist was telling me certain things, like there's a certain sample. I don't want to name it because I'm not sure. It's not a big deal, but it's an artist who is major and is on a major label, and I don't know if it's a thing that's known online. But Cut Chemist was explaining to me that him and Mumbles, because they're good friends, they've got a little private thing going where one of them used this sample really subtly. It's a very subtle thing, and it's in an interesting time signature as well that I can't even quite get my head around. But it's one of those ones that it somehow fits into 4, but I think maybe there's elements of 3s or 6s in it. But anyway, one of them used it, then the other one used it, and then the other one used it again. You know what I mean? It's like a little thing that they had batting, back and forth between each other. And, he was telling me all these little tidbits of information, but sadly my memory's not so sharp. But, but I should point out though, that album was from 98. Now Aceyalone's All Balls Don't Bounce was 95, and Mumbles did produce at least 2 songs on there, because he did Makiba and I think he did Anna Lilia as well. I might be wrong about that. He definitely did Makiba, because that's not only my favourite song on that album. It's also, and I've got my notes here as I already warned you, but the forward and afterward on Book of Human Language, which is basically the intro and outro music from it, which Aceyalone doesn't speak on, he just lets them run as instrumentals. They're both kind of, in my mind, they're sort of brilliant instrumental reworkings of the sort of same framework of Makiba. So, how young must he have been when he was doing that in 95? Anyway, or maybe he did it all around the same time and it took Aceyalone a while to write it.
Maybe, yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe, absolutely. And you can imagine it might have took him a while, but because it's just so dense, man. I'm kind of like you. I missed the boat on this. I actually thought it was a Naughties album when I first got it, because I didn't check the date. I just found it on the CD. I don't know why I even bought it, but it was like AC. I think it's because I actually got his last album in the 2000. I got his album Eclectic, Accepted Eclectic. Yeah, and then at the same time I got Book of Human Language, and I was like, what is this? And it was so dense. And I tried to explain this to one of my friends who was like, oh, so what album are you talking about? I was like, oh, this album. And he said, what's it about? And I said, wow, that's like asking, like, what is a Richard Linklater film about? It's just like, it's about life, I suppose. Like, the themes are so, as we said, just a huge scale. And for you, had you heard much stuff or concept albums that had like really touched this level? I know there had been Prince Thieves and Cool Keith and people have done concepts, but
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't think of whole albums that are on this level. That, I've probably missed other things, but I can't think of anything that comes close. I mean, it makes me think slightly of some of, for example, some songs on Stress, the Extinction Agenda.
Yes.
It does sort of, something like Stray Bullet, something like that just paints such a visual picture that it just completely blows my mind. Apart from the fact the music's amazing, Stray Bullet, sorry, organised confusion for anyone that is.
We've had Farrah Launch on a few times. People should know this by now. Hopefully. Sometimes
it's easy to assume, and then obviously some people will be listening and like, what? But anyway, just organised confusion, the Extinction Agenda, or is it Stress? The Extinction?
Yeah, the Extinction. Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like maybe if there is a theme that completely runs through the whole album, it's not as strong as the way the Book of Human Language does. But Book of Human Language, it's just, to me, it's just so deep. And again, going back to my notes, where he's, where he's got the song The Balance, where it opens with him saying, as soon as somebody dies, somebody else is born. People are celebrating while other people mourn. Just that opening gambit to me lets you know exactly what you're in for. I mean, the way that he speaks about life and death, it's just absolutely fascinating to me. And that's like I say, me, by my own admission, I'm not such a lyrics guy, yes, it's a very, very important thing to me, but pales in comparison, when it comes to the music. Music is the thing that touches my soul. And for Aceyalone's words to touch me like this, it's very rare, very rare.
That's interesting, man. That is interesting, because obviously they work so well as a marriage, and lyrically it's very hard to, you don't get it in one go. So, and even though he has this like amazing flow of the West Coast MCs that kind of weren't shackled down by that East Coast, the East Coast traditions. The West Coast MCs like Slim Kid Trey, like Parside and Soul's Mischief and Dell, and we've had a few of these people on now, and just talking to them, it just feels like they weren't restricted by any of that. They looked up to it, but they just did their own thing, and it doesn't sound awkward. Where you know, sometimes you think like if you're trying too hard, it just seems so natural to people like Aceyalone. And Ace on this is amazing, but you were saying there about the balance as well, and we have a few categories, and for me it was like one of the best things, because a lot like this album is, man, it's like a self-help album, as in there's a lot of stuff you can get from it, like the balance and the hold, the energy, the messaging of all that, and as well as the music. It is kind of like having a calm app for hip hop. It's like, this is, you know, how I should really live my life. So if anything, I appreciate you making me listen to this again now recently. Do you find yourself revisiting it at all? Do you find yourself revisiting a lot of old albums? Yeah,
absolutely. There's certain things that I just go back to time and time again, and this is one of those albums. It's not one that I can recite too many lyrics from, but that, again, that's probably more to do with the age I was when I started listening. You know, most of the stuff, you know, especially when I'm like putting samples together for my own music, the things that pop into my head when I'm looking for, you know, things to scratch, you know, and starting to, you know, join dots up in my head is always that kind of 88, you know, sort of era hip hop, because that was just the most important point in my life, I think, in terms of, you know, Big Daddy Kane, Ultramagnetic MCs, you know, when all those guys had their first albums, Slick Rick, MC Light, I mean, of course, Public Enemy as well, Run DMC. I was going to say Beastie Boys, but not so much lyrically. I mean, I love their energy, but it's more about Paul's Boutique. But anyway,
what album?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying is, I probably shouldn't name check them as you know, being lyrically carrying the torch the way that some of these other guys did. But like, you know, like Lord Finesse, Big Daddy Kane, you know, the way that their wordplay to me it had everything, because it was funky, and it was witty, and it was technical, and sometimes it was deep as well, but it kind of had everything, you know. And I don't know, that was the time where I just consumed everything and just listened to things over and over again. Something like Aceyalone, that came at a different part in my life when, like I said, I was exploring a lot of other kinds of music. But it is still, you know, Book of Human Language is something that I do revisit quite regularly. And I only recently played it to a friend who, A, she hadn't heard it before, and B, she's not really massively into hip hop. You know, she's an open-minded music lover, both music and lyrics as well. And she was blown away. She was literally blown away by it. And like I say, she's not someone that would typically, you know, check out any hip hop. She was just like, this is, something else.
That gives me so much hope. Right, because we do these episodes we call them hidden gem albums, even though people like me and you may know about them. There are some people who don't know about these albums, and we don't get, you know, as much love for those things as I think we should. I'm like, wow, this is such a great album. So for every one of those people, just to like, maybe one person, for every 10, one person might just be like, wow, it's great, because Aceyalone deserves this, Free / Fellowship generally, but they deserve this recognition of for me, a culture that it is documented better nowadays than it ever has been, but it still needs. So I can't imagine the amount of rock and prog rock and krautrock rock that maybe just got lost because of lack of documentation. And I just hope it never happens to something like Aceyalone, yourself, whoever, you know, like, let's not forget about, you know, some of the albums that have come out that you've brought out, but I'm going to get onto that. But I was going to say, you're saying there about the jazz. You love your jazz. I know you're a bit of a jazz head. The use of jazz, could you put your finger on then? What is it about this album's use of jazz that differs from someone, say, like Hieroglyphics or, I don't know, Tribe or Premier? Like, they've used jazz, made it classic. What is it about the Mumbles kind of sound on this that is different, if you could pinpoint it?
I think there are crossovers with some of those artists you mentioned, or some of the songs by some of those artists you mentioned. But I would say the overall feel with Book of Human Language, that it's not what you'd call a club record, and all those other guys made club records. I don't think there's a single. I'm not saying it would be impossible to play any of the songs in a club situation, but you know what I mean, Cam. It's not typically. Yeah, even in terms of. In fact, I'd written this down in my notes to say, you know, it's because you'd mentioned to me that, you know, typically you ask people about the most rewindable moment, and what I actually wrote so that I didn't forget to say this is, you know, for me, it's such a complete album, and you need to consume it from beginning to end as a complete work. You know, if someone says, well, what is it that's so good about this album? Yes, I could put on, for example, The Balance, or I could put on, you know, certain other songs and say, okay, listen to that, and if you like it, you know, we're onto something. My general feeling is, don't, you know, in the way that especially with hip hop and especially with people nowadays with short attention spans, they want to hear the banger that just, like, you know, knocks them out of their seat and like, oh my God, I've got to rewind that. It's like, this is an album for I was going to say for serious thinkers, but you know, not to sound so snobby, but you know what I mean, though. It's just musically and lyrically a lot deeper, and I love, especially like Tribe Called Quest, you know, first 3-4 albums, and you know, some of the other guys that you mentioned. But to me, Book of Human Language is it's a very different listening experience, and the kind of jazz that he'd sampled, I don't know, it's just a bit more. I don't know if it's because he's used quite spiritual jazz, like, you know, John Coltrane, Olé, or like Ornette Coleman, The Shape of Jazz to Come, you know, things like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's just touching. Even, and again, I'm going back to my notes, but even, you were saying about, you know, what hidden gems are on the album, and it's like, again, to me, the thing that really sort of stands out, if I was to say what's the hidden gem or the secret ingredient to the album, for me, it's actually all the skits and little preludes to the songs that are so subtle but so perfect, so perfect, because they either introduce the next song or they just put you in a certain mind frame or open your mind up a little bit to what's coming. And that's not just lyrically, that's musically as well. You know, Mumbles has just put in like a perfect loop from say, I think the one that really touches me is that there's one on a Henry Franklin album, like a black jazz LP that I've got. And you know, it's just a straight loop. You know, he hasn't done anything with it as such, you know, but it's just the perfect loop. And Aceyalone is there, just like, you know, just going off on one, and it's like, it just takes me somewhere really deep. It's you know, that's the difference between this album and, say, a Tribe album. Or who else did you mean? You know, that
High Road, Primo. You're right. And I suppose it's because it is a concept as well. They so lean into the fact that it's a concept with the Jabberwocky and the forward and all that. And even, like you've said there, I cannot remember what word it is. It might be hurt or the hunt, but he literally ends the song where he says he's about to say hunt or hurt. And then it goes into the next song and you're like, oh, wow, even those little moments that maybe could be lost on a lot of people. What I love about hip hop like this, and we recently did a DJ Shadow episode, and he does it as well, and Madlib does it as well, and where you feel like those moments, those little seconds that people might just not think about mean so much to the guy who's made it or the woman who's made it, and you're like, wow, I'm so glad it's resonating with someone like yourself, who then goes on and makes music, and it's in your head when you're thinking of music. You've heard this, and it lays like a groundwork. Man, it's just it's amazing, man. It's just really good.
I think a lot of people do, you know, maybe not the majority, but I think there are always people like us that do get those little subtle touches that people put in. You know, there are always people that are going to appreciate that. I mean, a lot of the things that I've done, let's take, for example, when I've done, I did some sort of 45, you know, some 7-inch only releases where I did tributes to the early works of like the Meters. I did a similar one with Kool and the Gang, and a few years before that I did James Brown. But when I did the Kool and the Gang and the Meters ones, I took it to such an extreme that I don't know if the average person would even realise this, but not only was all the music only from the Meters or Kool and the Gang, respectively. But the samples, the vocal samples that I put together, the little scratch sentences that in some cases they would rhyme or they would certainly be, very cohesive and meaningful, they were sampled from records that, like hip-hop records, that had used a Kool and the Gang or a Meter sample in their song. That was the stupid rules that I set myself, because that was my way of that was just my way of challenging myself. And I don't know, you the more you have confines, the more you sort of force creativity. And obviously that I don't always want to be confined, but in those instances, I found that really satisfying, and it gives me great pleasure when once in a blue moon someone will pick up on that and will comment on that, and just funnily enough, and this is not at all to name drop, because I don't know him well. We've just had a few exchanges online, but J-Zone, this is going back a few years. I can't remember if it was the Meters or Kool and the Gang, but we got sort of talking about it online a little bit, because he's obviously a really in the nicest possible way a nerd over the details like we are, right? And he's I know he's a big fan of particularly the drummer from Kool and the Gang. I think he'd interviewed him around that time, and he, after I'd sent him a copy of the record and he was digging it for a while, and then he came back to me, like, I swear it was like months later or at least weeks later, and was like, oh man, I only just realised what you did with all the hip hop songs.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, there you go. So it's like, that means a lot that people do catch the detail, even if it, it's a long way down the line, because that's committed to wax. That's, I've done it. I've put my art out there. Hopefully I've left an impression on someone in a good way.
Yeah. So, man, but this is this. Then circling back to all like this, like basically the credit you're giving to the listener comes at a lot of the time. You're sacrificing maybe nowadays the streams, but maybe back then you're sacrificing what may get you further in your career financially, or set your family up a bit more. And I find someone like Aceyalone 1998, like I looked up other albums that were out in 1998, and I'm like, first of all, this has got 2.5 mics in the source, which is apparently, I can't find the original review, but a few reports I've read have it as 2.5 mics in the source. In 1998, I was reading the source all the time, so I must have missed this review or just dismissed it because of a gatekeeper. And in my mind, it's like, wow, Aceyalone did all this such intricate, layered, and mumbles work that they actually sacrificed. But when I hear them talking in interviews, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to them. It just feels like, no, this is my artistic impression. And I can't help but think of your career, which is like, you have had How to Make a Hit Song, all that stuff. And you've had all that kind of pokey, funny stuff. But even the newest stuff you're bringing is like, it's just amazing to hear it, man. It's just like, wow, I'm glad that you stuck with it the way, and you're happy. It feels like you're happy.
Especially with the most recent album, Devil's Workshop, because I think, when I go back to, when I made my first album, Music for the Mature B-Boy, you're just in a completely different mind frame. Back then, I didn't know that it was actually going to, kind of blow up and do all right. I didn't know that. I just, as far as I was concerned, I was just doing what I always did, right? I was just kind of making beats at home and hooking up with certain friends and doing something that I thought was cool. But, I wasn't really thinking of it in terms of, I'm committing this to wax now and I've got to stand behind this forever, sort of thing, because that's the kind of thing that sadly has then come back to, I don't want to say come back to haunt me, but it's the sort of thing that I tend to overthink things. And I don't like it when I have certain songs that later I look back on and it's difficult to say regret, but certain things that might bug you about a song that you made and, I didn't quite get that the way I wanted it, or I didn't quite, especially with my instrumental songs where I'm like, man, I can see so much potential in what I was doing. I wish me now could go back and have a word with me back then, circa 1993. and just, you know, have a few words of advice in the ear or something, because I just didn't quite have the vision. And you know, now I've gone too far the other way where I'm overthinking everything. But you know, like I say, especially with my latest album, Devil's Workshop, I wanted everything to be 100%. I mean, of course I could change my mind in the future, but I had to feel like this is 100% my best work I've ever done, and I can stand behind this and say, this is exactly how I want, you know, my music to be heard, and how I want to be judged as a producer, as an artist, or whatever, whatever words I come out with. You know, this is what I can stand behind right now. Whereas, you know, there's stuff I've done in the past where I feel like, oh God, that's not aged well, you know, and like, oh, that was really corny. It seemed fun at the time, but now I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. But that's you know, when you put art out there, I guess that's the
exactly.
You know, that's the risk, isn't it?
Exactly, man. It's a courageous thing to even start to do that. On some level, there's some courage it takes to step into that sphere and make art and express yourself and put yourself out there, man. Kind of like just being naked and just be like, this is me kind of thing. And a lot of people can't do it, man. A lot of people can't even take it if they do it, you know. But just before we will come back to the album, but I was going to say, before we do that, I was listening to Devil's Workshop, and to be fair, I do this a lot with your work anyway. When there's a new format release of some sort, it used to be, when I first heard Mature B-Boy, Abdominal grabbed me by the you know, throat. It was just like, I am the lyrical monster you've been waiting for. And I remember just that hit me on the head. And I remember the beats just being like, wow, these are incredible beats for this guy. And then slowly, as I started listening, and I'd just call them, now he's formatting. Now DJ Format is formatting. When on every album you do it, where there becomes a beat and it's just so infectious to me, where I'm like, this is making me, even if I'm sitting down working, it's making me move. And even on this Warm Dust, Brainstorm, The Light, those things, I don't know if it's just me, but that's when I feel like, oh, I'm home again. I'm in my safe place. And I love the way you experiment and still make that factor, you know, that's you, it's your art. And it goes into newer stuff, and what you're trying on that album is great. And I love that record, man. It's on the Bangers playlist. Because I love them instrumentals. So big up, man, for keeping delivering, definitely.
I really do appreciate that, because like I say, it's my proudest work. I mean, of course, I'm proud of, you know, the vast majority of what I've done, but this, you know, from beginning to end, there's not 1 second of, you know, doubt or hesitation where I'm like, oh, I should have, you know, it's just like, no, I took my damn time. I mean, it should have been perfect. I really did take my time to get it just how I wanted it. But it means a lot that you know, as well as loving my old stuff, you've totally come with me on the journey, and you're still fully appreciating new stuff. Because, you know, I could see some people saying it's not a million miles away, and I could equally see some people saying that it is. It depends which of my stuff you're listening to, because I've always made different types of hip hop. I've always made slow, moody instrumental stuff. I've always made up-tempo B-boy stuff. I've always made rap songs. You know, I've made happy, funky rap songs. I've made moody rap songs, especially with the UK hip hop guys that I used to work with. You know, it's just that stuff doesn't necessarily, you know, get the same spotlight as some of the funkier sort of kind of club stuff. You know, that gets remembered a bit longer. But yeah, like I say, the fact that you were able to go on the full journey with me and still be on board for Devil's Workshop is really special. And that's what I found with quite a lot of people. I was nervous, you know, I got to be honest, I was a bit apprehensive, you know, like, are people going to just be like, well, what the hell's this load of depressing, you know, mess? You know, where's the happy, funky stuff? Where's Abdominal? Where's, you know, where's this rapper? Where's that? You know, it's like, I really wanted to do something a little different that was more representative of where I am now as a person, and certainly as a music lover. You know, the kind of music that I'm listening to is very much reflected in Devil's Workshop.
Yeah, interesting. Because when you're saying that, there is a little bit of apprehension, just completely honestly as a fan, because you're one of the few people, and not just because you're on the pod, but I've said this generally, you have a catalogue that's pretty seamless. Like, you always seem to deliver, man. And you're saying there about like the Foremost. I remember when you dropped that, and I was like, this is incredible. I love the Foremost. Obviously, Statement of Intent, that got quite a good, but everything you seem to bring has a quality to it. So when I'm about to press play on the new one, I'm always like, okay, hopefully. And it did. But for yourself, do you ever feel, I don't know if constrained is the right word, but maybe constrained by fan expectation, or is that more something in the past, or is that still in your mind when you're making art?
It does creep in, you know, and I tried for this new album to absolutely get away from that. That was the whole point. It's like, it had to be 100% for me. And then of course I really hope and want, you know, people to also love it, but it was first and foremost going to be 100% right for me.
Yeah. Love that.
So, but yeah, there's always that sort of like apprehension where you're sort of thinking, yeah, but people want, you know, what I think people want versus what people really want. You know, you're never going to get it 100% right anyway, because I actually put out a 45. I don't know how long before the album it was. It's maybe a couple of years before. I put out a 45 that was called Saturday Night Theme, and the B-side was Freak Show.
Right.
And to me, they were kind of good club tracks. I mean, Freak Show was a little bit more up tempo, but I just felt that Saturday Night Theme, I just felt that was I just thought that was going to be one of those ones that all the DJs that want their sort of funky mid-tempo sort of instrumental, you know, sort of funk type thing, but a bit more edgy. You know, I just thought this is going to tick all the boxes. And obviously I don't mean this at all in a, you know, cocky or arrogant way, but, you know, privately I felt I've really nailed this. This is what I wanted to do. I think it's, you know, I think it's catering to the audience that I think I've got. And well, if sales are anything to go by, I was wrong. I'm still sat on a few copies of that one, Cam. I can tell you.
Damn.
Between you and me and anyone listening to the podcast, I might have a few copies left of that sitting around at home.
Okay.
But so you never know. You know, I thought, yeah, you know, I've nailed it, and it wasn't the case. Then I came out with Devil's Workshop, which was generally, you know, overall a bit slower, moodier, definitely a lot more dark and serious. And bottom line, there are no club tracks on it. Again, maybe some DJs could play certain songs in certain environments, but to me, it's not a club album. There's no club tracks on it. And I was worried that was going to be a problem for people and it was going to really affect the sales. But I can honestly say that it went really well, and I'm proud as hell. I mean, it couldn't have gone, you know, in terms of how many copies I pressed and all, you know, and all the rest of it, and people's genuine response and feedback. I don't think it could have gone any better for me.
Wicked, you know. Man. That I love to hear that. That's just great to hear. I'm glad that you're getting that reward of a sort, you know. But I mean, this is the thing. I was thinking back to my experience of your music when it first came out, and just a few questions I wanted to ask on that, which was like, so Mature B-Boy came out, but if you can't beat him, join him was like, sorry, if you can't join him, beat him was like,
yes,
that album,
I didn't even notice.
I was going to say, I rinsed that album so much, right? And the other day I was in the car and another one of those songs came on one of these mix CDs I had, and I forgot how much I loved that cut. And I started driving. Have you ever watched Dead Man's Shoes back in the day? Did you ever get to
that film is serious, isn't it?
Yeah, really is. And I rewatched it again this year. It was on Channel 4. And I forgot there's a scene where they're all just driving. These like just absolute knobheads are driving and they're listening to Danger Mouse and Gemini. I don't know if you remember that Danger Mouse and Gemini, like, but they're all in the car and they're all like, oh, this track's, it's such an odd placing. It's like great hip hop in this UK Midland film. But I felt I was like that listening to the album again, because I was like, oh, I feel like those guys. And I don't know, I was so gleeful. And as a 40-year-old dad, you don't often get gleeful in the car anymore. So, I appreciate you for that alone. But I was going to ask,
thank you.
Between those two albums for you, Was there a big change, or were you just on like, I'm going to do just what I've got to do and tour? Where were you between the albums is what I was going to ask.
No, I would say that things did very much change, because the first album, the success of the first album took everyone by surprise. And when I say everyone, I mean, most importantly, myself, the record label, and my manager, who was effectively just a very good friend who was kind enough to manage me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wanted to just, you know, clarify that rather than sound like a real industry type person, you know, like my manager, basically my mate, who really guided me and helped me so much in just being a guy that, you know, sat in his bedroom making beats, to actually being able to take it to record labels and talk to them and you know, conduct myself in the business, because that kind of thing does, you know, it's important, basically. It's important. That's why I realise a lot of talented people don't either get their chance or they don't necessarily last, because it's like, it's a funny business and you've got to, you know, there's a lot of things involved. Luck is one of them, a hell of a lot of luck. No matter how good your music is or how talented you are, you've got to have luck, and I think you've got to be surrounded by the right people. Yeah. So anyway, I'm on tangents. So it took us all by surprise, and then all of a sudden there was this massive pressure to. I remember going into a meeting with the record label, and they'd had a meeting without me. You know, as you'd expect, you know, they'd had a meeting amongst themselves, you know, A&R guys and whatnot, and guys and girls, and just, you know, they were discussing who they felt I should get as guest MCs on the album, which, right, you know, I was probably a bit oversensitive to that kind of thing, to, you know, being told what to do, but you know, it wasn't untoward in any way. But I just remember, you know, their suggestions were so, you know, as far as I was concerned, way off the mark. Yeah. Again, that's not being rude or disrespectful, because they were good people I worked with, really supportive, lovely, enthusiastic people that were as much a part of the success of the album as, you know, the music, you know, and the lyrics, and, you know what I mean, is that was a big part of why the album did well, because the label at the time, they had brilliant people working there. Yeah. They later sacked them all, and they merged with another record label and got talked into doing dirty things. But anyway, we won't go into that. But there were good people at that record label, and they were trying to tell me, for example, that I should collaborate with Salt and Pepper. Now, Salt and Pepper, wow. Exactly. Now, look, like I said, in the unlikely event that, you know, the person that works at that label ever listens back and thinks that I'm personally insulting their suggestion, I'm not. But what I'm saying is, that's the level of expectation, and that's, you know, like the idea that I was going to, you know, Salt and Pepper, you know, I love their first album, by the way, you know, Hot, Cool and Vicious, was it? You know, they were cool when they were up and coming, you know, Beauty and the Beat, I Desire, even I'll Take Your Man, you know, that's some damn good songs, as far as I'm concerned anyway. I'm down with Salt and Pepper. But I wasn't going to be trying to collaborate with them in like 2004, because, you know, to me, that was just apart from the fact that they were like mega stars, they were effectively pop stars. And that's not that's not a direction that I was willing to go in at all. And even just having certain artists suggested to me, you know, that they remix my songs, you know, there was like, you know, French house artists, there were like UK artists who I like and respect. I'm not going to name any names here, but I like and respect, but I just didn't feel that I wanted them to remix my music. I just didn't feel like it was the right match, and it wasn't where I wanted to take things. So there was all this pressure, and then, you know, like me sort of getting forced one way and then obviously resisting that and trying to go in the other direction. And of course, everyone knew that it made sense. And I don't mean this in such a cynical way, but of course it made good sense to continue doing stuff with Abdominal, because not only did we have a great partnership and friendship, but obviously, you know, we had a fan base built, you know, why would we not do it? It's, you know, so of course we were always going to do that. But, you know, they were trying to push for more like, you know, bigger things. And you know, we were more on the, you know, on the idea of how can we build our stage show, what we do together. And we sort of decided amongst ourselves that it would be cool if Abs had someone else on vocals because he was basically having to carry the show on his own, just one man with no backup vocals, no nothing. Just, I mean, if you saw our early shows or even our later ones when we reformed, you'll know that he's like an absolute beast to be able to rock that solo for like an hour, sometimes longer. That takes some doing, and so, we brought in Decisive and, those guys were already friends. So that was all cool. But there was so much pressure, even when I was, giving them early demo versions of songs, I was then getting pressure, there needs to be more, radio friendly songs or club friendly songs, stuff like that. And it's like, I can't lie, the pressure, like, it did get to me a bit like, man, what am I dealing with here? But yeah, that's kind of the way it went, and ultimately, I wouldn't say I have any like major regrets with that album, but it's probably my least. And sorry to you or anyone else that really likes it.
No, not at all. No,
join and beat them, but that's probably my least favourite work that I've done by a long way. Actually, interesting. Just I think there was. I had a hell of a creative block. When I was about, I don't know exactly how far through the album, but like a half or 2/3 through, I just kind of clammed up again, probably, the pressure. And I just wasn't coming out of anything I was happy with at all. And then I think there are a couple of songs that I ended up doing that I don't know if I convinced myself that I thought that they were my best work, or I don't know what I went through mentally to tell myself that it was all right. But there's stuff that I look back on and I'm like, no, that's really that's not that good. I'm not too proud of that. But, that's why I went, I then moved on and did different things. And that's, for example, why when I made the Foremost with Feel Most Chill, I made it really clear to Phil that, not that we were ever on different pages anyway. Me and Phil were always on the same page. He's just such a joy to work with. Just not only a wonderful human being, but just such an inspired inspiration. He's an inspiration to work with, because he just, if he hears a beat he likes, he just takes it and writes to it immediately. The only delay is he's working a full-time job, like, Monday to Friday. He's like, I can't get and record the vocals in the studio until the weekend. But, he was literally writing to beats that I sent him the same day. And just like, I've just written 3 verses, and the man's incredible. But anyway, again, I'm going off on tangents.
No, at all.
But he... I made it really clear to him, the way that I view the kind of music that we're making. If we're making what people are going to term as, golden era hip hop or throwback rap or classic, whatever you want to call it, it's important to me personally that we don't use breaks that have already been used before. Of course, you can never be sure that nobody's used this and nobody's used that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I know that. And again, this is not a criticism, but I know that he's done work with, for example, like, Paul Nice or Joe Rum Bombay, where they very deliberately sort of reuse classic old breaks. And don't get me wrong, it's cool. I love some of that stuff, but it's not for me. It doesn't push me as a producer, as an artist, to do that. I'm saying if we're doing an old style of hip hop, we've got to bring something new to it. And so for me, that means new breaks, new ideas, not regurgitating the same old stuff. And Phil was absolutely supportive of that. And that's why I think that album, again, if it's not, if it doesn't sound bad or whatever of me to say so, I feel that album does hold up against anything sort of in that similar genre, because it isn't just regurgitating stuff. It's like, yes, Phil is always going to sound like the guy from the era that he's from, because he's Phil Chill. He's got a right to sound like that, because he's original and he's the best. He's as far as I'm concerned, he's the best guy still doing that style. So that's why it stood the test of time. We brought something new to an old formula, to a tried and tested formula, or to a classic sound. We did it with originality. I think that's why it's hopefully always, it's respected. Let's say.
Yeah, absolutely is, man. Still bangs as well. Absolutely, I love that album, man. So just to go back then, just to wrap up, human language, right? Did you know then for human language that I never knew this, but that it could have been a trilogy? Did you know this?
No. What do you mean?
So again, back to that interview with Mumbles, and this is all these little gems he was dropping in this interview, because it was like, I was thinking in my head, that would have probably been one of the best concept trilogies ever. He was like, we've talked about it. The post one was supposed to be a book of human warfare. That was going to be the next one. And who knows if this stuff will ever come out or see the light of day. But to have artists even thinking that way, especially after the story you just said, of like being on this kind of, you've got to think about the industry if you want to obviously make a living, but you've also got to be an artist and you want to express yourself right and correct. It's interesting it never landed, but the fact they were even thinking, wow, we could do this and it might still happen. You're getting all these sequels. I saw Cuban Links 2 about a decade ago, and I hear Supreme Clientele 2 is coming. So you don't know, like all this stuff, it could happen. How do you feel though, if they were to drop Human Warfare like next year, or would you be eager to hear it, would you say?
Absolutely desperate to hear it. I realise that, what is it, 23 years or something like that have passed since Book of Human Language. So, I realise that both Aceyalone and Mumbles will have, matured, progressed, as people, as artists. I know that ultimately there's not going to be another Book of Human Language, is there? It will be a new work in its own right, but I would love to hear those two guys collaborate, because I was a massive fan of RJD2's first album, Dead Ringer, more for the instrumental stuff than the rap stuff, if I'm honest. Not to diss any of the rap stuff on there. And I love June, but I love it more because of the music, even though the vocals, the lyrics are particularly touching. The second verse particularly. But musically, I thought, some of RJD2's work was just mind-blowing on that first album, the way that he put samples together, similar to Shadow on Introducing. And I was so excited when I heard that, RJD2 was doing an album with Aceyalone. Was that the Accepted Eclectic?
That might be that one. Actually, I can't remember.
Either that or not. Basically, I know that they did one together. And again, I don't want to in any way speak negatively or certainly disrespectfully of artists that I, really, really respect and love. But it just didn't quite work. Well, when I say it didn't work for me, that's not right. It just didn't quite, musically, it didn't quite tick the boxes that I wanted it to tick. But again, because RJD2, he's an artist. He'd moved on. Fair enough. I hadn't. As a listener, I wanted to hear, kind of like Dead Ringer instrumentals, with Book of Human Language, vocals. But of course, time had passed. People had moved on. I get that. So, but if Aceyalone and Mumbles are going to get back together again, I'll be the first person in the queue to buy that for sure.
Oh, wicked, man. I love to hear that. Love is still there. The expectation is still there. It's like Deltron and whatever, people are always asking for these things. I'm not sure if we always need them, but it's just, fun, isn't it, as well, I suppose, as a nerd, as you said earlier. I am one of those as well. I was going to ask you then, I know you talked about most rewindable moments and hidden gems. There were a few hidden gems, actually, I thought. First of all, we've got to say, the guidelines, if there is anything that is going to probably be your entry track, if you're not really too much into, I don't want to call it weird rap, but you know what I mean, like rap that's not that kind of rap, I would say the guidelines is one of them where I'd probably play that first to someone. I'm just be like, listen to this first, and then you'll get into the album. I don't know how you feel about guidelines, but
I know exactly what you mean, and but I think that although you're right lyrically, I think that maybe musically, because it's got a bit more of a, I'm certainly not going to call it a club vibe, but you know what I mean? It's a bit more, I can't find the words, but it's a bit more accessible. Yeah. Whereas something like say, as I use as an example, the balance, that's just so deep musically and lyrically. It's just like, that just takes you somewhere quite, you've got to be in the right mood for that. Whereas guidelines, you can just play that to someone. It doesn't really matter what mood they're in. It's not going to be a problem either way, but you've got to be in the right mood and ready to hear the balance, because that's some epic shit, that's epic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like I was listening to a lot of independent hip hop at the moment, but also like there are people like Griselda and Alchemist and doing this kind of different drumless sound that is being very prevalent. But along that drumless sound, there is great, different, unique music coming out that has got drums on it. And I was actually listening to A Grandfather Clock again, which I know a lot of people cite as their favorite track on the album. But I was just thinking, oh yeah, well, from just my social network experience, you know, when I post things about this album, Grandfather Clock gets a lot of love. And for me, it's one of them tracks where you're like, oh yeah, like this. It's so hard to rap on at times where you think, first of all, fair play to Aceyalone, just being like, yeah, I'm just going to rap on all this. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to change any of it. I'm just going to do it and be amazing at doing that. But that's something now where I feel like if you heard Grandfather Clock now, that kind of that kind of droning sort of kind of beat. Like
from the clock, you know. Yeah, I get it.
I reckon you could put that on a few tracks nowadays and have people rhyming over that. Probably not as good as Aceyalone, but still, Ace Kilt is one on his own, isn't he? But that again, I feel like Grandfather Clock deserves that. And same as the bass riff on Human Language, man. I was just sat literally before I came on this call. I was like, man, I didn't even notice this the first few years, you know. And it's only later where you're like, oh, wow, that I forgot it, you know, that bass riff. And had to dig into those few ones because just so good. Were there any other tracks that you thought, like, I don't know, Walls and Windows or anything else that you thought that might just need a bit of a touch on before we wrap it up?
Well, the other one I was gonna say is one of my personal favorites is Thief in the Night. You know, that entire song, the way that he speaks about death on there, you know, that it you know, when it comes like a thief in the night. It's just, even when he, again, I might be getting mixed up, but isn't that the one where I think at the end of the song he kind of goes into almost a spoken word monologue, you know?
Yeah, I think it is. He does it a few times.
With their suits on, how many people die with their boots on, and it's just like, again, it's like he just paints such a visual picture. But again, musically, that's one of my favourites as well. So it's just, that one deserves a special mention. What else was I going to say? The song that I thought that had aged the best, I just thought it deserved a mention because I kind of feel like it was ahead of its time. The Hurt. That's the one that just to jog your memory of any other listeners, that's one that's like, the more I look around, the more it hurts. The more I look around, the more it hurts. It's like, it's in 6/8, I believe, 6/8 time signature. So for anyone that's not really familiar with that, you know, pretty much all, you know, club music, modern music, you know, it's 4/4, just like, you know, you know, you know, it's simple. There's no overthinking, right? You just nod your head to it. But if it's in 6/8, you know, for a guy to be, well, first of all, musically, for Mumbles to have put that together with all those different samples back then is damn impressive. But the way that, you know, the Aceyalone rhymes over that just so effortlessly. It's like people weren't doing that back then. I know he's a pioneer, along with, you know, the other guys, particularly from Freestyle Fellowship. I know that they're pioneers. You know, I'm pretty sure they were influenced by, you know, Last Poets as much as any rap artists. I think I read that somewhere. I'm not an expert on those guys, actually. I haven't really, you know, as much as I'm nerdy on certain things, I haven't really explored too much. But yeah, for me, The Hurt, that's one that I feel people should go back and listen to that and think about. That was 98. Who was making, I'll tell you, people that were making songs, you know, pushing the boundaries kind of like lyrically and really messing with flows. Obviously, you had people like Company Flow, and then you had, do you remember, oh God, what were they called? Anti-Pop Consortium. Did you ever get into those?
I never got into them, but I remember them, yeah.
Some of their stuff was, you know, too, you know, they were very experimental. You know, you're not going to like everything. Some of it, like, really, you know, threw me, and I was like, well, I can't deal with that. But some of the stuff they did was mind-blowingly good for me. Wow. And they were really pushing the boundaries. So, you know, there were guys like that, and of course, you know, Pharoah Monch as well, who I think collaborated with those guys at least once or twice. You know, they were kind of really going all over the place with flows, but I'm not even sure if they were messing with time signatures like that. And again, it's not just doing it for the sake of it. It's not just for the sake of being clever. Like, look what I can do. It's like, it sounds natural.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It sounds so effortless and so right. You know, I guess it harks back to when Aceyalone did The Greatest Show on Earth. You know, that song again. I think that I'm just trying to think. You know, from memory, I think that's in. Yeah, I think that's in 6/8 as well.
Wow.
And again, I actually. Didn't Mumbles do that track?
Oh,
I think
did he?
That's it. I think Mumbles did Makiba and Greatest Show on Earth. I think those were the two that he produced. I don't think he necessarily did Anna Lilia, but I might be wrong. Anyway, but you know, who was trying to rap like that back then? Maybe there's a whole bunch of people and I've missed out on it, or maybe they were just rapping on things that musically didn't appeal to me. But for you know, for me, again, that's why. Mumbles and Aceyalone, you know, Book of Human Language, it was just the perfect marriage, you know, the perfect producer with the perfect MC, just at the peaks of their game.
Yeah. And just to cap that, like the way he kicks off The Hurt is exactly a crystallization of why this album's amazing, because you have all that stuff you've just said about the music, right? You could spend another hour just looking at what he's saying. Like, he's saying about his communities and he's talking about but so many more things than just that. And it's the way, as you said, I can't even recite it, it's that ridiculous, but it's the way he breaks the words down to kind of bend and flow, like they just plasticine almost. And you think, man, musically you could just talk about this, but now if you even get into the lyrics as well, just the whole album is like, so for anyone who hasn't heard the album, if this hasn't convinced you, I don't know what else we can do, because
anyone that's listened this far to us rambling on predominantly about one album, they're either going to have such high expectations that they're going to be disappointed, or they're going to be, for God's sake, guys, shut up, and not even want to hear it. I mean, I am hopeful that there will be some people that you know, haven't heard it before and do go away and check it and go, wow, thank you for introducing me to that one. Because
the amount of people I hear who now say they're into Sons of Kemet, or, you know, this new jazz kind of wave of the last few years, if you're into that, you'll pretty much be into Mumbles production, I feel, or you'd at least respect it. I think you'd get something from it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison, actually. I never really thought of it like that, because ultimately Sons of Kemet, they're still, you know, they're still a live band doing their thing. Whereas Mumbles, you know, I view the two works very different, because what Mumbles does is, like myself, just working purely with samples. So I kind of view it differently, even though the average listener may not. It's like when I try and explain to people that, my Devil's Workshop album is made from 100% samples, hundreds and hundreds of tiny, intricate things pieced together, sometimes bigger chunks, but you know, some people can't really get their head around it. Like, well, what do you mean? It's not a band. It's like, no. I mean, so that it's interesting that you compare the work of a hip hop producer like Mumbles to a new jazz band that are coming out doing really abstract, interesting things. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's one of them albums where you get different things, I feel, you know, over the years. And maybe it's just one of the things where I was just like, man, it evokes that from me, you know, that feeling and that aura and the, sorry to use the word texture, but it has got moments of it. It has got moments of it. But format, man, before we do go though, is there, what else is coming for you? Touring or is there, let us know. What else you got in the works, man?
What else is coming? I mean, vaccine passports.
Apart from...
No, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I would say I finished Devil's Workshop actually back in October 2020. So the fact that it only actually came out, what was it, the end of March, I think, of 21 of this year. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really made any music since I finished that in October. I've had a few sessions where I've sat down and tried to do stuff and realised that my head's not ready yet. I mean, sounds a bit over dramatic, but it took a lot out of me because I did work pretty much night and day on it and, you know, drive myself, close to insane at times, just because I just wanted things so perfect. And when you are working with samples, you know, it can really mess with you. Just like, it would have been easier to just get, call up a friend, like, look, I really need a bass line just played here. Look, I know what I wanted to do. I want you to do this. But no, I just kept going and just kept digging through my records until I found the right things on other records that I could, get and sometimes filter or isolate or whatever. And oh man. So after that whole process, then it's like the big sort of, after you've finished, then you've got to gear yourself up for, bear in mind, I have to do everything, I bloody self-released it. You've got to then gear yourself up for all of that. And that's a real, am I allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah.
Well, it's a head fuck. I can't think of a better way. It's a real head fuck because it sucks all your creative energy because all you're thinking about is business and social media, promotion and business and self-promotion. And well, that's just things that I'm not good at, and probably because B, I just, it's not what I'm about, So you've got to do it, but it's not what I'm about. I am a music lover, and I'm an artist too. So I don't want to be doing that shit, but I've got to. That's my best chance of just about earning enough money out of the whole project to just about, justify. I mean, of course I'm going to do it regardless because I've got to do it. What else am I going to do in my weird life? But it takes so much out of you. I personally need to recharge my batteries. I really need time to sit back and kind of figure out, okay, what next? I can at least tell you that I've got maybe off the top of my head 4 songs that are either almost finished or, like completely in the same vein as Devil's Workshop. And some of them even could have been contenders to go on that album had I finished to my satisfaction. But in the end, I just decided, okay, I'm going to go with what I've got. I'm happy with it as a complete album. I'll leave these songs for the next project. So I'm already, I've already got a head start, but I just haven't had the right mind frame to get into it yet. But my gut feeling at the moment is just that I don't really want to DJ too much anymore. DJing in clubs, at my age, it's kind of sucking the life out of me. I had a gig. Well, in fact, let's not even get into specifics because, it might sound insulting to, the people at the certain gigs. But let's just say most of my gigs, I'm by far the oldest person there. And I'm trying to play music that was made before everyone in the place was born. I mean, all right, you could say the same with soul and funk with us guys, but it's not quite the same, is it? It's like people just come up and want to just ask you, can you please just play something modern? Can you play something, it's my friend's birthday, please can you play something by Beyonce? And it's just like, that sucks the life out of me. I'm much more suited to just staying home in the studio and making more moody, deep, meaningful stuff like Devil's Workshop. That's where my head's at right now. I don't know how I'm going to make that pay in the long term, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what, for me, that's what I hope my future can be. But truthfully, I don't know, Cam. I don't know, because in the meantime, I want to still do some gigs because I do still obviously have bills to pay, but there's not a lot going on at the moment. So obviously people are still uncertain with all the C word.
Well, I hope, at least, I grew up in hip hop where the community was strong. Like, as soon as I got into the community at 19, it felt like there was a actual scene. So for people out there to just spread the word, man, and listen, and just like for people who are taking time to make actual art in this amazing, culture, I feel like just spread the word for people out there. And it's great music. Like, it's not even like, it's not even lip service. It actually is banging music. It's great. And and I love just listening to the headphones and just like getting immersed in it. And I think that's just, as I said, getting older, you find a lot of I cherish that a lot now. Just being able to put the headphones on for half hour or 40 minutes and just really just get lost into something. And Devil's Workshop does that for me quite a bit. So man, big up on that, definitely. Before I go though, how is the how big is the record collection looking at the moment? You're saying you're digging into all samples. How big are we looking at the moment?
I mean, I've never attempted to count it.
Oh, right.
So I don't know. I think also it's sorry to not give you a direct answer, but I think it's very easy to fall in the trap of thinking that it's big and clever to have
Oh yeah.
And I think the older I've got, and you start to realise, I've got records in certain crates. So I've got like crates of drum breaks, crates of b-boy, up tempo b-boy breaks, moody slow stuff. I've got like things in different boxes in different crates, specifically to make it easier for me to just get to them when I'm working. I realised that I've had some of them for over 20 years. I've got what I call my priority crate, right? And what that is that's my absolute, whether it's just like that it's the best stuff or that it's kind of really what I believe to be unknown, or at least not used, under the radar stuff, it's like that priority stuff. I've had stuff in my priority boxes, for like 15 years. And it's like, well, what kind of priority is that? So you start to realize that, time is infinite. And if I've got a million records, I'm only, you can only ever listen to a small percentage of it. So I've got a few thousand records, but as much as I do still buy records as and when the right thing crops up and as and when I can afford it, I'm actually selling records as much as I can as well, because I want to keep a healthy balance where I want to be realistic and let certain things go. If I just feel strongly enough that there's not really, as far as I know, going to be a time in my life when I'm going to want to come back and listen to that, let it go, let someone else enjoy it, just get it out from cluttering up space in my house. The only time it's that there's any regret is sometimes if I was going to look for a vocal sample to scratch, and then I'm like, where's my copy of so and so, some random old record from '87 that I thought I was never going to play again. So I want to cut that little vocal thing that so and so said. Oh shit, I think I got rid of that when I moved.
Yeah,
but yeah, the record collection's still healthy, but I shouldn't really have to buy another record in my life to either be able to make another bunch of albums or to go out and do gigs. I should have enough ammunition up there. But I'm fine. But of course, you feel that you want the inspiration of a new discovery. You know what I mean? You want that buzz. It's not as exciting to pull out a record that you've had 2 years, and I can tell you for sure it ain't exciting pulling out a record you've had for 20 years because it's old news to you, right?
Yeah.
You get excited about the latest thing. So I let stuff go. I let stuff go.
I like the idea of that, not recycling, but I suppose recycling, but also, knowing, right, other people may enjoy this and may make something out of it, other than yourself. But man, Format, thank you so much, man. You've delivered on so many levels for us. Before you go then, the question I ask every guest before they leave, what's the last great piece of music you heard? Could be old, could be new, but just the last great piece.
All right. Well, that's I was going to say it would probably be Book of Human Language because
of course
before we started this interview. But I'm going to actually just delve behind it. You can see the listeners won't, but on the shelf here.
Yeah. All right.
I finally managed to get a copy of this yesterday. This is Giles and Fripp. The Bronsbury Road tapes, 1968. So what this is the early members of what became King Crimson, and also like McDonald and Giles, and basically sort of British sort of I want to say psych and slightly jazzy elements and all sorts, but they basically and prog for sure. But this for me, I mean, I've got the actual album that they released around this time was The Cheerful Insanity of Giles and Fripp, which is a very interesting record, and I like it. But compared to the stuff on here that they didn't put out, now anyone that knows me will know I'm a record nerd, and I don't buy reissues, generally speaking. Okay, maybe there's one or two exceptions, but generally for me, it's like it's one or the other. You either buy originals or reissues. Otherwise, if I'm going to buy reissues, why would I ever waste my money keep buying these expensive originals? But with this stuff really didn't come out until 2009. this. I don't know if there was an earlier,
right.
you know, maybe in the 90s. I'm not entirely sure, but basically, this 1968 material makes their actual official release album sound like, you know, like a, I don't even know what to say without being derogatory. It just shits all over it. Wow. This just blown me away. I played this several times last night, and I will be playing it several times tonight as well.
Wow.
So it's like I say, it's more, you know, it's difficult always to put your finger on, you know, to categorize music because it's very broad, but it's kind of psychedelic rock of the late 60s with some jazz influences and some, you know, just lots of influences. A lot of different types of music was being fused together for the first time in those years, right? Yeah. So it's a very experimental time. I'm a massive fan of Soft Machine, for example. You know, that was, you know, first of all, I got into their jazz stuff before I actually started to appreciate their first two albums, which they have jazz elements in for sure, but they're more predominantly what I'd call kind of psychedelic rock and very experimental. And I would put this in a similar bag to that. So anyway, anyone that wants me to reiterate, it's the Bronsbury Road tapes, 1968 in brackets, by Giles and Fripp.
Brilliant.
So that is some great music right there that I just bought yesterday when I was on the way back from my weird frog experience, my elbow treatment. I knew that there was and this is another weird coincidence. I was in North London. I used to live right by, anyone that knows the area, Hornsey Police Station. There's Conk Studios, which I believe is owned by Ray Davis of the Kinks. I used to live right by that. I moved about 12 years ago. But at the time that I lived there, I think it was just a newsagent opposite. But for about 7 years now, it's been this great little record shop. I think it's just called The Little Record Shop or something like that. So I didn't have much time, but I was just passing through that area after my Cambo session yesterday. And I called in this record shop for the first time. And he had a mint copy of this record just sitting there. I mean, it's been out of print for a long time. So that really made my day. So it was obviously meant to be, you know, the spirit, the shamanic spirits were like, you know, calling to me, like, come and have your Cambo treatment and get a really cool record on the way home, man.
Oh, it's all come together. It's all come together beautifully. Man, that's brilliant. That is so good. Well, man, thank you again for coming on. Doors are always open if you ever want to come on, or if you've got new music down the line, man. We're here, man. And people go out there and support. And we'll catch you soon, my man.
Thank you, and thanks for your time and patience, Cam. I did warn you beforehand that I do talk a lot, right? And
I love it.
I know you're going to have a lot of editing to do, right? But
this is going out as is. It's great, absolutely brilliant.
Oh, in that case, I think we should apologise to the listeners.
Apologies.
To ramble on. It's because I'm very passionate, and I'm definitely. I was having this conversation with a friend actually recently. I'm definitely on the spectrum for whether it's mild autism or something like that. I do really overthink things, and I especially doing an interview, I really overthink how I'm going to come across and how I could be misinterpreted and how, am I definitely not going to sound egotistical? And am I going to, I overthink things to death. It exhausts me.
Mate, don't worry. Just completely honestly, it's been great. It's been absolutely great. So don't put any of that on your head, my man. You've been stellar. So, but until the next time, we'll keep spinning that music, man. And
please do send me a link when you get it, because it's always nice and slightly terrifying to listen back and see if I made a fool of myself. But please do send me the link. Let's stay in touch. Any music of mine you need in the future, just hit me up, because I'm terrible at doing mail outs and stuff to people. I don't even keep a list of people that buy my records, or anything like that. I told you I'm a bad businessman.
Don't worry.
But anyway, keep in touch, and again, thanks for your time, Cam. I really appreciate the little spotlight you've been shining on my music today, as well as Book of Human Language.
Of course, man.
Thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too, man. You too. Get some chill and listen to that record.
Definitely, I'm going to smoke a joint and listen to it.
Oh, mate, me too now. I'm going to do that all. Take it easy, bro.
Appreciate it, mate. Nice one.
Peace.
Cheers, Cam. See you later on. Bye-bye.
Peace, mate.